I have been married to my wife for 10 years, together for 14. During this entire time, her family hasn't been particularly warm to me, but we've been on good terms, never had any issues that I am aware of. Her sisters don't really talk to me, never have. I realized pretty early on that they didn't like me, so I gave them their space. My wife, 41 years old, mother-in-law, MIL, 70 years old, and sister-in-law, SL, all love horses, and I hate them. But I am accepting of my wife's hobby and help out a lot because it's an expensive and time-intensive hobby. 4 years ago, my grandmother-in-law passed and left a small inheritance to my mother-in-law. My wife and I have a smallish property, and 2 years ago I was approached by my wife to allow my mother-in-law to clear land and put a horse enclosure on my property so she and my wife and sister-in-law could keep their horses there. I initially said no. I didn't think it was a good idea, for many reasons. But every 3 months or so, my wife would ask me again, and eventually I caved and said yes, but with some conditions. 1, I didn't want us to have to foot the bill for this after it was installed. They would all three share in the responsibilities and costs. 2, I didn't want this to substantially change my life. 3, it was a gift. I didn't want to be indebted to her family for this, i.e., if we chose to sell the house, we wouldn't have to pay her back. My wife and mother-in-law agreed to my terms, but mother-in-law wouldn't meet with me to discuss the plans or specifics of the project. I let them go and monitored the project. Several times, I had to step in and put my foot down that certain aspects needed to be done correctly and not as cheaply as possible. Mother-in-law clearly wanted this to be done as quickly and cheaply as possible, but I didn't want to fix or replace everything in 5 years because it breaks. In October, we were nearly completed. I had spent the last several months doing back-breaking labor, putting in utility lines, clearing land, and digging out stumps, but the property was not ready. Mother-in-law was putting pressure on us to move the horses to avoid paying board, but the shed to store hay wasn't installed yet, and there was debris over the field. The shed base was a point of contention because they purchased an extremely cheap and flimsy shed that needed to be on a concrete base. Mother-in-law and wife didn't want to put in the time or money to pour a slab, so they were fighting me a bit. But eventually I had to tell them to pour a slab or find another shed because the shed was so flimsy it was a major safety hazard unless properly anchored. By the end of Novi, the slab was poured, the shed installed, and the debris cleaned. Mother-in-law again wanted to move horses. I wanted to set forth the ground rules and get them to agree to them prior to moving. There were 6 rules. 1, 30 minutes notice prior to dropping by. 2, 24-hour notice for routine vet visits. Emergencies don't require notice. 3, the house is off limits unless invited in, i.e. they can't come in when they want to use the bathroom. 4, helmets must be worn when riding before. 5, approval and liability forms required for any guests. 6, violation of these rules more than 3 times could result in removal. This causes a major shitstorm. It was communicated via group text with my wife, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law. Mother-in-law agreed to these terms. Sister-in-law lost her mind and started to call wife bossy, saying that texting before coming over was completely unreasonable, that she wouldn't send notice because she's never had to do that at a boarding place, and then said that all because I was in butt. She then started calling me names, accusing me of swindling her mother out of the inheritance. Sister-in-law suggests that father-in-law and mother-in-law should sue me to get the money back. I was respectful, but hurt. I said that if she didn't want to agree to the rules, then that's okay, but no horse on the property. Mother-in-law says they will bring my wife's horse for now since they were already planning to move horses. However, I am not very wary because litigation has been brought up and Pandora's box can't be closed. I decide I need to cover myself financially in all this. There were communications between MIL, SIL's wife, and a couple of hours later, I get this text from sister-in-law saying, "Sorry for calling you a name." I was still pretty hurt and responded, "Which name? Butt, liar, swindler?" She responded with, "ass." I felt the apology was backhanded and said as much, and that I needed some space from her. Since she didn't agree to the rules, she couldn't bring her horse. A couple of hours later, mother-in-law drops off wife's horse and leaves. Then, an hour after that, mother-in-law sends wife a text saying, "We're here. Are you coming out?" I went outside, and sure enough, mother-in-law and sister-in-law are unloading their horses in the field. I stormed out of the house and yelled across the yard at them, "Why are there 3 horses in my field, mother-in-law?" Sister-in-law immediately responded, "Get over yourself, dude." I said, "Get over myself? Why don't you get your horse off my property?" She said, "No." I said, "Okay, then how about I call the cops then?" This upset sister-in-law and mother-in-law. Mother-in-law started going on about how I should forgive family immediately after blood cools. Sister-in-law started saying that I stole the money, and why did I take the money? At this point, we were talking on opposite sides of the fence, and sister-in-law moved about 60 feet away, mid-conversation, so I raised my voice again so she could hear me. Finally, I realized we were at an impasse, and I said, "Whatever, keep your horses here, I don't give a shoot," and walked back into the house. They decided to take their horses and leave. After that, I decided we needed a boarding agreement where the rules and liabilities are clearly defined. We drafted a very standard boarding agreement and sent it to mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Mother-in-law agreed. When sister-in-law returned the document, there was a slew of untracked changes, some of which would cause wife and me to be liable for unreasonable things like her horse getting sick or injured, potentially putting us on the hook for thousands. Sister-in-law is a paralegal for an insurance company, so she knew exactly what she was doing. I confirmed with sister-in-law via email all her changes to the document, but was respectful to her. We said there was no way we could accept this agreement, as it would void our insurance policy. It seemed like we were at an impasse again. We say that mother-in-law is allowed to bring her horse at any time. Sister-in-law needs to agree to the original terms. Sister-in-law declines. Mother-in-law doesn't bring her horse. Then father-in-law gets involved. Father-in-law starts texting wife trying to resolve the situation, saying mother-in-law doesn't trust me anymore. Not sure why? Mother-in-law starts sending texts saying the barn value needed to go into the boarding agreement. So if she leaves, the barn goes too. I think, no. He then asks to have a sit-down with myself and wife as an information gathering session. We agree, and he's very respectful and calm and just says that he is planning to pay mother-in-law back the money she put into the property and make her whole, as well as give sister-in-law the same amount. He's trying to smooth things over. Says mother-in-law and sister-in-law were joking about the suits and not being a gift. I am amazed that this is happening, but hey, it's his money. I'd prefer to be out of all this, but I also don't want to get sued for any of it. We depart on good terms, with us saying we will send over an updated boarding agreement. We leave on good, smiling terms. The next day, I send father-in-law a text and say that we need to sign a gift affidavit stating that the horse enclosure and barn are a gift, as originally promised, before drafting new boarding agreements. He agrees and says that the funds will be transferred to make mother-in-law whole by the end of the week. We agree to meet the following week to sign the forms at a notary. When we meet, mother-in-law is in the car and father-in-law is inside. Father-in-law is not happy or friendly, but says hi. Mother-in-law enters and doesn't say a word. I guess everyone is mad now. So we don't say much, sign the paperwork, and as we exit, mother-in-law very loudly says, "Oh, now I am pissed." Wife and I are like, "WTF?" We say thank you as they are walking away and leave. It was a very tense situation overall. Several days go by, Christmas goes by. We send over our normal presents to mother-in-law and wife's family. She thanks us for the gifts and tells us that she's mad because I didn't apologize to her for yelling, and we both didn't thank them, even though we did say thank you as we left. Then there are a bunch of texts between wife and mother-in-law where mother-in-law is trying to convince wife of a different series of events. One where sister-in-law and mother-in-law haven't done anything wrong. One where I was planning to do this all along and steal her money. And where I am a crazy person that yelled at mother-in-law for no reason. Wife isn't buying it and starts getting angry. Tells mother-in-law to review all the texts and emails because they are very eye-opening. At this point, we decide sister-in-law is out. The invitation to put her horse on our property is rescinded. Wife and I aren't going to play this game every time sister-in-law gets upset, behaves poorly, and then mother-in-law jumps in to defend her blindly. Mother-in-law is still permitted to put her horse here. Mother-in-law starts sending texts about how ungrateful we are, pointing out all the times she's been generous in the past and how we should let sister-in-law put her horse here. The next day, we get a text from father-in-law saying that they dropped off presents at our mailbox for our son. They normally give our son a lot of Christmas presents, as he's the only grandchild in the family. I was confused, but when I checked the mailbox, there were only a couple very small presents amounting to about $30, all wrapped and addressed to my son from MIL. We give them to my son, but make up a story because Phil have made no effort to see my son on Christmas. Not that the amount of the presents really matter. I've always been uncomfortable with how much money they spent on him, and he was happy with the gifts regardless. Which brings us to the present. Wife and I are upset that mother-in-law is apparently taking her anger on me out on our son. Other than standing up to her family and not being okay with threats of liability and suits, I can't figure out what I have done wrong. Did I just uncover the toxicity that's always been present in her family? Wife's not like this? Or should I apologize? Am I being treated like an outsider, or am I being unreasonable? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I'm a professional horse trainer. My mom has had horses in training with me. You're right to have a boarding agreement. The liability is nuts, and people love their horses, and things can get ugly really fast. Huge human injuries and horse fatalities make people do things you wouldn't expect. Your first 2 rules are a little much. The rest are good, especially the helmets. The way you handled the process really wasn't great. You guys should have had a big meeting and written down everything before starting. No meeting, no project. I get you thought it was family, but still. And then you kept changing the rules. All very sensible rules, and horses need safe buildings. They hurt themselves enough as is. You're also right that the horse stuff won't add value to your property. Some buyers will love it, but others won't want the bother, so it's a wash. Sucks you're in this, but unfortunately it's just exposing what your wife's family is like. My mom pays board on her horses, I pay her rent, she owns the farm, we have boarding agreements and a lease. Never a problem. And it's been a great way to stay connected and in each other's lives. What you're going through is totally awful. It will feel awful if it breaks apart the family. But even though you handled it poorly, their behavior is out of line. And you didn't cause them to be toxic people, and good man for helping so much with the damn horses. I'm always so amazed when spouses help like this when they don't love horses. Comment 2. This is messy as hell, yourself included. Asking to have boarding terms after they've already invested is unwise and underhanded. It's obvious to us that you didn't want to enrich your land with a horse stable. But that's not obvious to your in-laws when you're also telling them they can't even pee inside their sister's house without running it by you. There are some things you're asking for that you're just not going to get. Bathroom passes for your wife's near relations are not reasonable. Even if they agree, they're not going to actually abide by that. And you do look like a butt asking for it, because using a bathroom just isn't some huge imposition. Your sister-in-law is definitely being in butt too, especially because she's the one party here getting something for nothing. It wasn't her inheritance invested in these things. Her apology to you wasn't worth accepting, but you need to understand your own part in escalating this conflict if you want to resolve it. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a wild couple of weeks since my last post, and boy, do I have an update for you all. So, after the whole mess with the horse enclosure and the boarding agreement, things took a turn for the dramatic. Remember how my sister-in-law, SIL, had tried to sneak in some crazy terms into the boarding agreement? Well, after we rejected those, she went silent for a bit. We thought maybe she was cooling off, but nope, she was just gearing up for the next round. She started a campaign to turn my wife's family against me, whispering to relatives that I was the bad guy in all of this. It was like a soap opera, with me cast as the villain. My wife, bless her, stood by me through it all. She knew her sister's tricks and wasn't swayed by the manipulation. But it was tough on her, being caught between her family and me. She's always been the peacemaker, and this was tearing her up inside. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law, MIL, was still allowed to bring her horse over, but she was acting colder than ever. She'd drop by with barely a word, do her horse stuff, and leave. It was like I was invisible on my own property, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Then, out of the blue, my father-in-law, SIL, called for a family meeting. He wanted to clear the air. We agreed, hoping for some resolution. The meeting was tense, but father-in-law seemed genuine in his desire to fix things. He even offered to reimburse mother-in-law for the money she spent on the horse enclosure and give sister-in-law the same amount to keep the peace. It was a generous gesture, and for a moment, it looked like we might actually get past all this drama. We met again to sign the gift affidavit, making it official that the horse enclosure was a gift. But mother-in-law was there, and she was fuming. She accused me of not apologizing for yelling during our previous confrontation. I was taken aback because I had apologized, but she was rewriting history in her head. Christmas came and went, and the gift situation with our son was just sad. It felt like mother-in-law was punishing him for the issues between us adults. It was a low blow, and it hurt to see my son caught in the middle of this mess. After Christmas, my wife and I had a long talk. We decided that enough was enough. We couldn't keep letting sister-in-law and mother-in-law walk all over us. We officially rescinded the offer for sister-in-law's horse to stay on our property. It was a tough decision, but we needed to stand our ground. Mother-in-law didn't take it well. She sent a barrage of texts calling us ungrateful and reminding us of all the times she had been generous in the past. It was like she was trying to guilt us into submission. But we didn't budge, and then, just when we thought things couldn't get any more strained, father-in-law dropped off some presents for our son at our mailbox. They were nothing compared to the lavish gifts they usually gave, and it was clear they were making a statement. We didn't let it get to us, though. We gave the presents to our son and made up a story to keep the magic of Christmas alive for him. So here we are, 2 weeks later, and the situation is bittersweet. On one hand, we've stood up for ourselves and set clear boundaries. On the other hand, it feels like we've lost a part of our family. My wife is heartbroken over the rift with her sister and mother, and I can't help but feel responsible for the strain. We're left wondering if this was always lurking beneath the surface of her family dynamics, or if we somehow brought it out. It's hard to tell, but one thing's for sure. We're not backing down. We're protecting our family and our home, even if it means enduring the cold shoulders and the passive-aggressive texts. Partner got a German Shepherd puppy without asking me, and now I'm thinking about leaving. Oh, and he's also talking to his ex about our relationship. So my partner and I have been together for around 11 months and conceived our beautiful baby boy really early in our relationship. She had a medium-sized dog and a cat. I'm a dog person, but I'm allergic to cats, so I just avoid it. And I do fine. I knew that they were part of the package since they were here before I was. She is rather impulsive. I'm not the greatest myself, but I can at least admit it and include her in any big decisions. There were many times during the pregnancy that she insisted we get a kitten or a puppy, but I always said no. I suggested we wait and see how things are when the baby is here. I knew that just having a newborn wouldn't be easy. Anyways, in November, when I was working in a remote location, she called me and said that there were these bad people who were going to be getting rid of a German Shepherd puppy on the side of the road, but they would trade the puppy for an Xbox. She said she wanted to foster the dog for 2 weeks until she found new owners. I told her that I knew she would get attached, but she said she wouldn't. I also reinforced that it would be extremely difficult to take care of our baby along with a puppy. I told her that I can't control the decisions she makes, but I hope she would make a smart decision. She got the dog. Now we have our newborn, born late December, and the puppy has become a nuisance. The puppy steals the baby's clothes, barks, urinates, and poops literally everywhere, and she does little to prevent it. It has also chewed up most of his pacifiers and bottle body part. I only found out because I asked her where they all went. and she said she didn't know. But shortly after, I saw him chewing on a bottle body part. She was covering for the puppy and only admitted to it once I caught him in the act. I get extremely irritated because she just lets him get away with everything. And all I end up doing is disciplining and cleaning up after the puppy while working full-time and doing most of the household tasks. When I get frustrated, she tells me that it's all in my head and that I shouldn't let it bother me because I'm allowing myself to get mad. I don't know what to do. I feel like this has become extremely disrespectful. She made a decision that I didn't agree with and now makes me feel bad for being frustrated and resentful about something I warned her about. Should I leave? She won't budge on the dog, and she says if I do, I'll be ruining our son's home life because of the dog. Do I just stay for my son? The thought of leaving my baby boy makes me sick to my stomach. Edit. Some of you seem to have created an echo chamber, focusing on the fact of me having a child with someone I barely knew. I already know this. I cannot hit an undo button, and wouldn't even if I could. I love my baby boy. Now please focus on the subject at hand. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Who in their right mind conceives a baby in only 1 month and a bit after meeting someone? And you also knew about her having past bad relationships, being impulsive and all that jazz, and I thought people marrying in that period of time are crazy. What is wrong with people like you getting into such things? Enjoy drama and spending most of your wage on a baby with someone I bet you won't resist being with for more than a few months. Comment 2. Please don't have any more children. You're both way too immature to be parents. For your son's sake, you need to rehome that dog, and you both need to learn how to cut out the drama and be good parents. If you cannot do that together, learn to co-parent. No ridiculous neutralizing necessary. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post about the chaos that's been going on at home with the new puppy and our newborn. I've been trying to deal with the situation, but things have taken a turn for the worse. Remember how I mentioned my partner's impulsive nature? Well, it's not just with pets. She's been making more and more decisions without me, and it's starting to affect not just our home life, but our finances too. Just last week, she bought a brand new expensive stroller without discussing it with me. We already had one that worked fine, but she claimed the new one had better features. It's like she doesn't understand that we need to save for our baby's future. But let's get back to the puppy issue. It's been a nightmare. The puppy, which she named Max, has grown a lot since November, and his behavior has only gotten worse. He's not just stealing baby clothes anymore. He's now jumping into the crib when we're not looking. It's dangerous, and I'm worried about our baby's safety. I tried to talk to her about finding Max a new home where he could get the attention and training he needs, but she blew up at me, accusing me of not caring about her feelings. She said Max was like family now, and I was being heartless. It's like she's completely ignoring the fact that our baby should be our top priority. The confrontation got heated, and she dropped a news on me. She said that if I couldn't accept Max, then maybe I wasn't the right guy for her or our son. I was stunned. It felt like an ultimatum. Accept the dog's behavior or lose my family. And here's the juicy injustice that's been eating at me. She's been talking to her ex behind my back. I found out when I saw a notification pop up on her phone. It was a message from him, asking how Max was doing. Turns out, she's been venting to her ex about our arguments, and he's been giving her advice on how to handle the situation. It feels like a betrayal, not just because she's talking to her ex, but because she's discussing our private issues with him. I've been trying to keep my cool for the sake of our son, but it's getting harder every day. I'm working full-time, taking care of most of the household chores, and now I'm dealing with this emotional turmoil. It's like I'm living with a stranger, not the woman I thought I knew. The other day, I came home from work to find Max had chewed through the wires of our TV. When I confronted her about it, she just shrugged and said accidents happen. But it's not just an accident when it keeps happening over and over again. It's negligence. I'm at my wit's end. I love my son more than anything, and the thought of not being there for him every day is unbearable. but I'm starting to feel like a single parent in a two-parent home. It's like I'm the only one trying to create a stable environment for our baby. I've been reflecting on our relationship before the baby and the puppy. We had our issues, but I thought we were working through them together. Now, I'm not so sure. It's like she's regressed to a teenage version of herself, where she doesn't have to think about the consequences of her actions. I'm not sure where we go from here. I've suggested couples counseling, but she laughed it off. She doesn't think there's a problem with our relationship, just with my attitude towards Max. I'm starting to feel like I'm in a no-win situation. If I stay, I'm miserable and resentful. If I leave, I risk not being there for my son every day. I never imagined that a puppy could cause so much trouble or that my partner would choose the dog over our family's well-being. I'm trying to hold on for my son, but I don't know how much more I can take. My boyfriend has autism, and this girl thinks she can disrespect him and try to steal him from me. Oh boy, she has no idea what's coming. I'm a 28-year-old female. My boyfriend is a 26-year-old male, and the other woman involved is a 26-year-old female. Over 2 years ago, when I first met my now boyfriend, a mutual acquaintance named Debbie approached me alone and said, "Stay away from boyfriend, he's mine." She was laughing/smiling when she said it. So I laughed too, assuming she was joking. At that time, I had no interest in being with him as we had just met. On another occasion, Debbie mentioned his name in a conversation when he wasn't present and made a comment that, "Oh, he's taken now, unfortunately." She didn't say who he was seeing, just that he was in a relationship. I found her comment out of place, but didn't pay much attention since I didn't have any romantic interest in him at the time. My boyfriend has never been officially diagnosed with anything, but to simplify things, based on signs that are commonly known today, he's probably on the high-functioning end of the autism spectrum. Of course, everyone is different, so he doesn't exhibit every sign in the same way as everyone else, but he has intense interests in subjects associated with the spectrum, sensory issues with clothing and food, and socially, he can be a bit different and awkward. However, it's not extreme. He's just unique. He lives on his own and owns his own company, so he's doing well in life. However, you wouldn't know any of this based on how Debbie acts. She always behaves like she knows him better than anyone else and makes a big deal about it. She loudly announces that he won't be able to tolerate certain foods or sounds, and tries to protect him from sensory input by covering his ears or eyes if it's too loud or crowded. While she may laugh when she does this, there's a serious vibe to the way she talks about him. My boyfriend actually dislikes it when people touch his face, so he always pushes Debbie's hands away. She objects, saying she's trying to help him, but she continues to laugh. She acts like she knows how to deal with his issues, but doesn't really listen to him or respect his likes and dislikes. It seems like she's trying to tease him and harass him more than anything. He's polite and doesn't make a big deal out of it, but it's obvious to any observer that she annoys or embarrasses him when she does these things. Eventually, my boyfriend and I became close friends as we work near each other. We started having lunch together, which eventually led to a romantic relationship. He's highly entertaining, funny, smart, and interesting. I don't focus on his quirks, as he handles his sensory issues well, and mentioning them seems to embarrass him. So, it's not a problem in our relationship. When Debbie noticed that my boyfriend and I were spending time together alone, still as friends at that time, she immediately jumped to the conclusion that it was because of my appearance and started claiming that she knows him better than anyone else. She even made derogatory comments about people with autism, as if she thought I would overhear and reconsider being around my boyfriend. After a year, we realized we had a lot in common and started developing romantic feelings for each other. It took another year for us to officially become a couple, and Debbie is unhappy about it. She has subtly portrayed me as a man-stealing woman to others in our social circle, and some of them believe her because she made it seem like she was the closest person to my boyfriend and knew him best. Some of our friends even expected my boyfriend to end up with Debbie, so they want an explanation as to why things turned out differently. and blame me. She portrays me as shallow and claims that I don't know him like she does, implying that she is the right person for him. My boyfriend describes her as annoying and says he has never found her romantically attractive. The fact that she is infatuated with him makes him uncomfortable. He has told her directly to stop touching him, but she continues to do so. He has never given her any indication of romantic interest. And when he hears the things she says about him from others, he's concerned about her sanity. Now, Debbie is giving me the cold shoulder, acting depressed and sad around my boyfriend and talking negatively about me, claiming that I'm only interested in him for superficial reasons like being a gold digger or user because his family has money. Some of our mutual acquaintances are believing her, so I feel scrutinized as soon as I'm not in her presence. Should my boyfriend talk to her about these issues? Or should I talk to her? Or should we both talk to her? Or is there a better solution? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I guess my question is, if this person has repeatedly violated your boyfriend's physical boundaries over many years, made ableist comments about his presumed autism, said inappropriate things about him to others, and apparently tried to force a romantic relationship where it is not wanted, why is your boyfriend still friends with her? Why does he spend time with her? Why would his friends, who presumably have also witnessed Debbie's bizarre, infantilizing, controlling behavior, assume he and Debbie would end up together, even though your boyfriend has never expressed romantic interest in her? However, this situation is handled. You should not be involved. Her behavior is directed primarily at your boyfriend, and your boyfriend should be the one who handles it, and he needs to be much more firm with her than he has been. If he will not handle Debbie on his own, it's worth asking why. Comment 2. BF needs to stop being nice. He needs to raise the social cost of her transgressions. Right now, he's told her she's doing wrong, but there's nothing backing that up except words. If she says he won't be able to tolerate something, he needs to say clearly and loudly, "I've told you before, stop that. My limits are mine, so butt out." Be rude. She is being rude by ignoring him, so he needs to speak the same language. If she touches him, he should scream and flail, ham it the hell up, act like a wasp just landed on his face. Then again loudly declare, "I've told you not to touch me. Don't touch people without consent." If she makes a comment about, "Unfortunately, he's taken," he comments loudly back, "It's fortunate for me." If those still don't get her to back down, it's time to stop being near her. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I'm here to give you the update you've been waiting for. Buckle up because things have gotten even more intense. So, my boyfriend and I have been dealing with Debbie's antics for a while now. Remember how she claimed my boyfriend was taken and acted like she had some sort of dibs on him? Well, she's escalated things to a whole new level. Just last week, we were at a mutual friend's birthday party. Debbie was there, of course, and she was doing her usual routine of hovering around my boyfriend, trying to act like she was his personal caretaker. She kept trying to adjust his shirt, saying the tag was probably bothering him. My boyfriend, as usual, was getting visibly uncomfortable with her touching him. He's told me before how much he dislikes it when people assume things about his sensory issues without asking him first. But here's the new development. Debbie actually tried to kiss him. Right there, in front of everyone. My boyfriend dodged it, looking shocked and upset, and I was livid. I couldn't believe she'd go that far. Especially knowing how he feels about personal space and unwanted touch. It was like she was trying to mark her territory or something. After the attempted kiss, things got really awkward. Some of our friends who had been on the fence about Debbie started to see her true colors. They couldn't ignore how inappropriate her behavior was. But others, they seemed to think it was some kind of love triangle drama. Like she was the scorned woman, and I was the villain who stole her man. Now, let's rewind a bit to give you some context. Debbie and my boyfriend have known each other since college. They were in the same study group for a while, and that's when she developed this obsession with him. She's always acted like she has some special insight into his life, but in reality, she's just been projecting her own fantasies onto him. My boyfriend, on the other hand, has always been a private person. He's never been one to share much about his personal life, which is why I think Debbie's behavior has always been so jarring to him. He's told me stories about how she would try to involve herself in his projects and decisions, even when he made it clear he didn't want her input. Back to the present, after the party incident, my boyfriend was really shaken up. He confided in me that he's starting to feel harassed by Debbie's behavior. He's always been patient and polite, but it's reaching a breaking point. He's worried that confronting her might cause a scene, or that she might twist his words and play the victim. And here's another twist. Debbie has been spreading rumors that I'm only with my boyfriend because of his successful company and that I'm not really interested in him as a person. This couldn't be further from the truth. I fell for him because of his unique perspective on the world and his kind heart, not his bank account. It's been tough dealing with the whispers and the looks from people who believe Debbie's lies. It's like she's trying to isolate me from our social circle. But I've been standing my ground, and I've made it clear to my boyfriend that we need to address this situation together. So we decided to have a talk with Debbie. We sat her down and explained how her actions were affecting both of us. My boyfriend was firm but calm, telling her that her behavior was unacceptable and that she needed to stop. I supported him, making it clear that we were a united front. Debbie, predictably, didn't take it well. She accused us of ganging up on her and said that we were misunderstanding her intentions. She even tried to turn on the waterworks, but it was hard to feel sympathetic after everything she's done. Since that conversation, things have been tense. Debbie has been giving us the silent treatment, but it's almost a relief not to have her constantly inserting herself into our lives. However, I can't shake the feeling that this isn't over. She's been quiet, but there's a look in her eye that tells me she's plotting her next move. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.